really want to improve your driving technique, you cannot just ask someone to tell you when to brake or when to turn. You have to learn how the car wants you to drive it. You have to learn car handling techniques, and that's where I excel at. The Motor Racing Checklist is the work of my life, currently with 2,000 drivers registered, and here's the thing, if you don't improve in 30 days, you get your money back. So give it a try. If you have any questions, just send me a message. I'm always available to answering these questions. This course is made for high-level drivers. If you're a beginner, you're gonna use it for a long time because all these concepts will help you right away, but the more you improve, the more you understand them, and then you're able to squeeze every concept to the limit, and you're gonna gain precision to be able to apply them in a very subtle way that most people don't even notice a difference in your driving. But those are the small things that make you improve a tenth per corner, and then if you just add up those tenths, you realize you're 1 second faster than everyone else. Give it a try. If you have any question, just send me a message.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
If you really want to improve your driving technique,
Live from iRacing's virtual Phillip Island circuit, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 5 of this 2024 BiS Formula 1600 Championship Series. Coverage of tonight's broadcast, as always, brought to you by Turn 1 Sim Racing and MotorRacingChecklist.com 2.0. As we welcome you into the podium booth, we're alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by DJ Clark and our producer downstairs, Christian Hill. And we are just 2 weeks away, DJ, from crowning an F1600 championship, and we stick with the theme of racing down under. We were supposed to be with you about 2 weeks ago for the King of the Hill special event at Bathurst. That's been pushed to March. Instead, though, it is Phillip Island in the state of Victoria that plays host tonight to the 5th of 6 points races this season.
Yeah, and what a fantastic venue to be able to put on this series here at this point. Phillip Island is a little bit of a hidden gem when we talk about road racing circuits. It's got a little bit of everything: medium speed corners, high speed corners, slow speed corners, and really, for these little machines, it is going to be absolutely fantastic. No downforce to lean on. It's just mechanical grip around this place, and that's going to put a real impetus on corner exit to make sure that you're able to get off right.
We referenced it off at the top, but want to say thank you to those who make these broadcasts possible, and it starts at the top with all of our great partners for being a part of this. Of course, our friends at MotorRacingChecklist.com 2.0. You can make sure to visit them online today, and as always, as well by our friends over at Turn 1 Sim Racing, where champions are born. So I mentioned we are closing in on the end of this championship this season, and there are still 6 points races up for grabs if you include the 3 tonight and the 3 in a couple of weeks' time at our season finale in BiS Sport. And here's how things shake out coming into tonight. Michael Broomhead continues to lead the championship, and not only that, but his team, Trace Britannia Ice Sports, also leading the team championship, but it is tight on the driver's side. DJ only 12 points over John Benvalid. It is 16 back to Stuart Ross. All of those names have been in victory lane recently, including Ross with a win a couple of weeks ago with our last trip out at Zandvoort. So 12 seems like a healthy pad when you look at some of the other gaps. 1 point between 6 and 7, 6 points between 7 and 8. 12 is larger than most gaps, but because we hand out points 3 times a night, Michael Broomhead cannot be sitting too comfy with 2 weeks to go to lock this thing down.
Yeah, you absolutely read my mind about that, Evan. When we talk about that points championship, because we've got those multiple races over the course of a single event, that really draws everything in closer. And Michael's really going to have to be on the top of his game. He has qualified 3 times on pole and has tried to dominate from the front of the field here at this point. He looks like he may be on cue to do that again here today, but he is going to have to look out of that rearview mirror because the rest of this field is ready to attack, and they know who the championship leader is.
And those 3 races, every single trip out is what has been making this championship so interesting. We have not seen anybody complete a sweep yet on the F1600 side of the calendar. And speaking of that calendar, let's take a look at where tonight's race falls in the big picture. We've already gone to points racing at Road Atlanta, at the Chicago Street Course, at Donington, and at Zandvoort, which means tonight at Phillip Island is the penultimate round of this championship. Again, King of the Mountain rescheduled to later this year in March. That is a non-points race, so the emphasis goes to Phillip Island and then to Mosport. 2 races to determine the champion.
Yeah, and talk about 2 old-school racing venues. I mean, these are areas where you're not talking a lot about asphalt runoff on the outside of the circuit. They're very, very similar in the fact that they've got a great rhythm and flow to them. And the other thing is that they're prime opportunities for drafting, which in these F1600s is going to be very, very crucial. I think anybody who looks strong here tonight may be able to carry on that momentum into Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but we are going to have to see. It's a great way to end out the season, and this really is a where's where in terms of good racing venues.
And let's talk about the racing venue for tonight, this Phillip Island circuit, Australia's premier permanent road course. Phillip Island is a 2.7-mile thrill ride of a racetrack situated on an island just off the southern coast near Melbourne. This 12-turn circuit features a long main straightaway, hair-raisingly fast turns, tight hairpins, and dramatic elevation changes, and is set against the deep blue backdrop of the Bass Strait, separating the Australian mainland from Tasmania. This is one of the world's most spectacular motorsports venues.
Yeah, it really is. As you charge down the main Gardner Strait here and into Dewan Corner, which is that first corner, you can see the sea out to the outside. And while that may just be a gorgeous sight to see, the other caveat to that here, Evan, is that it is not uncommon to get some pretty hefty wind gusts around here. It's only blowing about 2 miles an hour as of right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of that wind pick up because it often comes across the track, and that can really play into how cars handle and how the draft comes into effect here at this Phillip Island circuit.
Drivers wrapping up the qualifying session now, and maybe if you're joining us for one of the first times this year, let's walk you through what the format will look like for tonight's 3 races. It all starts in this mammoth 20-minute open qualifying session where these drivers have the opportunity to put down about a dozen laps, if not more. Best times, of course, set the grid. Then we will have 3 different 15-minute long races here at Phillip Island. That's going to equate to about 10 laps in total race time. After race number 1, the starting grid for race 2 will be set simply by the finishing results from the first race. However, the kicker comes in at the end because after race number 2, the top 10 will be inverted. So your race 2 winner gets a little up the 10, and your 10th place finisher gets flipped to the top spot. That has been the great equalizer that has prevented domination. We've seen the likes of Buchanan go out there, win the first 2 races, but the invert proved too tricky. We have yet to see a driver win the 3rd race while also getting both of the race wins in those first 2. So the invert is what makes things challenging, but so does the details about these sprint races that all starts with those fixed setups.
Yeah, fixed setups, which means the only difference between these F1600 machines are going to be the fleshy part in the cockpit. The drivers themselves, standing starts, which raises the game here a little bit. You've got to really be on it. Make sure you get that clutch buy point absolutely correct. The one thing that they are able to come back on here at this point, though, is the fact that they have a spare car to use. And that's a good thing. These have pretty spindly suspensions here, and just a little bit of contact can really lead to trouble there. The other thing to keep in mind on that same note, 12x, you get a penalty. At 17, you get disqualified.
And nobody wants to end up in the danger zone there, but who knows? We have seen some wild finishes and some pretty aggressive races over the course of this season, and we're excited that it is back in action after nearly a month off on the F1600 side of things. Just under 2 minutes left to go in that 20-minute open qualifying session. Currently top of the board in the qualifying is Michael Broomhead in the 00 machine, your championship points leader. Zach Buchanan enters tonight 2nd in the points. He's currently P6 on the speed charts, and Stuart Ross, who's 3rd in the standings, sits right now in P4. Those are not yet locked in. They only got about 70 seconds and change left, but it is proving to show those top 3 in the championship have the speed here tonight, and there's a beautiful look at where this racetrack is situated right on the coast.
Yeah, there you can see that sea that I was definitely talking about there at that point just to the outside as we now take a look down the Gardner Straight. And for Broomhead, this is what he needs to do. He needs to have a good night here tonight, build that buffer out a little bit before we go to CTMP so that he can rest a little bit easier when we get to that track. He does not want to have that narrow of a gap going into the final round. So I think this is a declaration of intent here for Michael Broomhead. He is pushing himself ahead. I've been watching him around on this circuit. He looks calm. He looks poised. He looks like he's got it all together.
And the big story with the Broomhead is his race wins have not come with the same frequency of the likes of Buchanan, who is a counterpart in terms of fighting for this championship. It's been a different story for those two. Yes, he's found success, 2 race wins in the back pocket for your championship leader, Broomhead, but Buchanan's got 4, Ross has got 2. The difference for Broomhead has been the consistency in between all of those wins. He is up inside of the top 5, competing every single race. Sure, the race win pays max points, but he has had less off races than everybody else, and that consistency is what makes it so frustrating if you're a guy trying to catch him to make up points, because a bad night for his standard, 4th, 5th, it's tough when a guy you're racing is that good even when he's off.
Well, that is the mark of a champion, is being able to be consistent no matter what. But it sounds like we are ready for the grid here, Evan, as drivers are lining up.
Hey, let's go trackside and take a look at your starting grid for race number 1 at Phillip Island. And Michael Broomhead does hold on for pole position. His 138.745 is enough to do the job, and it'll be Garrett Mealing alongside him on the front row in 2nd. Back on row number 2, the 83 of Roger Sieber starts in 3rd tonight, and he'll be joined by one of the aforementioned championship cars, although Stuart Ross may be starting from pit road. That's a developing story. Green flag in the air, though. We're off and away in this race, and it was a failed start for Garrett Mealing, your pole sitter, caught sleeping on the grid. Nobody thought the lights were going to go out that early, and it caught everybody off guard. Race leader Clovis Gerard did the first couple of corners, and now Roger Sieber takes over the race lead.
And crucially here at this point, Michael Broomhead caught down on pit lane, so he's going to have to restart from 4th position. But it looks like Horvath and Doran may have both had a little bit of an off coming down through the southern loop.
So sounds like the next race may go to a rolling start. Race control discussing if this race will include a restart in it. It seems like that may be the case. I don't think the drivers were ready. Certainly, DJ, we were not ready for the lights to go out that quickly. And I believe we are going to slow things down, and we will pace the field, get everybody back into the correct order, and try again, because a majority of the cars were not even on the grid yet to that point.
Yeah, I mean, Ross, Broomhead, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, Gerard, Mill, and Salmon, all of them down in pit lane when things kicked off. I'm not exactly sure what happened, if there was some sort of miscommunication with race control or if there was just kind of a glitch on the iRacing service, but absolute chaos at the start of this. As you said, everybody's going to reorder back up here, and it looks like we're basically going to have a restart under a rolling start style condition.
So race control going to discuss with the drivers right now how to get them back into the correct order. Again, I believe this may also be reflected. You talked about how important the standing start element of these races are. It sounds like to avoid this similar issue, and maybe it is a quirk with the starting procedure or the time allotted at this track specifically on the service, they may transition to rolling starts for the other races. That could be big because that completely changes how these races kick off. You had pointed out when we were talking through the format, DJ, how big for you those standing starts were. So what kind of an element change is it if we do indeed? Obviously, we're going to do a rolling restart here, but for those future races as well.
Well, for those future races, if we tick over into a rolling start style situation, you're going to be able to take more advantage of the draft going on into turn one, and you're going to be able to play things out a little bit more. As we watch Keenan Harris coming down through Dewan Corner, it's just a different style. It's a different way of thinking about things. You're not having to worry about wheel spin nearly as much. You're just focusing on keeping momentum up as opposed to absolutely nailing the start and getting off the line as quickly as possible.
So they will continue for one additional pace lap around the racetrack. Graham Lobin has ended up ahead of the rest of the field. So that is what the race leaders are waiting on, is they're going to pace, catch up to the 12 car, and then we will restart this race the next time by. It kind of does give us a nice exploratory lap of this Phillip Island circuit as we look from high above in our podium helicopter, if you will, and gives you a great look at how this racetrack bobs and weaves with the landscape here on the island.
Yeah, it really does, and it kind of layers over itself quite well, where you just saw them come through down into Siberia and then bringing their way back up through here. This is Hayshed Corner, one of my favorite sequences on the track. Now, I don't have the most experience here in these F1600s, but let me tell you, if you're in a more of a downforce car through this section of the track, it is a treat to drive. You absolutely chuck the car into the corner and pray that it holds on. Obviously, in these lower downforce machines, you're doing a lot more of feathering and of the throttle and working the brake a little bit more to get that rotation correct. But it is dangerous if you get it wrong. But it is one of the greatest joys in the world if you get that sequence of corners right.
And with the drivers coming through the final sets of corners here to Swan Corner, turn number 12, I believe we will be looking for the green flag this time by. This is going to take a decent amount of time out of this race, less than 10 minutes or so going to be left on the clock as the race leaders will get set to go back underway. Broomhead and Maylene going to be on the front row with Sieber and Ross back on row number 2. They'll head towards the start-finish straight. A couple of cars still catching up towards the rear. And when they cross the start-finish, this race should resume, and we'll be back underway. Broomhead under power. Here we go. It's race number 1 at Phillip Island. Broomhead the advantage off to the first corner. You can see Lobin up the road will yield to the leaders as they come by for the first time at full speed.
Yeah, here they come. That's going to create a little bit of a moving chicane there. A little bit of a run from Ross coming in from behind. This is where we saw a couple of drivers go off. Horvath looks like he may have caught a little bit of the outside grass. He's going to go off into the outside, falling all the way down through the order.
All the way to the tail end goes Horvath. He's going to get passed up by everybody. He was 6th at the stripe. P6 no longer. Watching the battle up front, though. Lobin trying to pick up the pace, blend in with these lead cars. Can't do it. He goes all the way to the rear. And a big lock up there. Sliding into the very outside of the racetrack. I think that was Garrett Mealing in P3.
Yeah, it was. He locked up in that McLaren livery and set himself forward. Also, I think Sieber and Harris may have had problems coming down into Honda as well, as those two cars have now fallen down through the order as they run right now. It's Broomhead, Ross, and Mealing. It's really interesting there going into Honda as Ross and Mealing both tried to go around the outside, carried a little bit too much momentum, and Broomhead just stuck to the inside, made it work, and said, I'll take that P1 back from you.
Oh, bit of a lock up there, though. Smoke off at the right front as he missed turn 10. And to the top spot, taking advantage is Stuart Ross. One opening. He pounces on it. And looking for more now is Zach Buchanan and Garrett Mealing. They are jumping all over Broomhead, who's able to get a good exit off of Swan Corner, turn 12, and defend P2. But after our first 2.76 miles of green flag racing, Stuart Ross launches out to the race lead.
Yeah, and crucial here for Zach Buchanan. He needs to try to get his way up forward. We mentioned 4 wins for him on the season, but he only sits 2 points behind Broomhead. He needs to try to make that up here in these races. He wants to put the pressure onto Michael and see what he's able to do. We ride on board with that bright yellow machine here at this point, but he's got to get by Mealing before he can take that attack on Broomhead. Mealing and Broomhead side by side, though.
And the guy with the best seat in the house is Zach Buchanan. As you're on board with him, what's going to give into the right-hander for Honda? There's contact there. Contact into the back end of your at-time race leader there. I think it was Mealing who was a little bit overzealous into the corner. Got into Ross. 67 got out of shape, and just as quickly as he lost it, Michael Broomhead going to go back to the race lead as they all kick up some sand on the exit at turn number 6. A couple of cars tangled up in the rear with an incident. Doesn't affect the race leaders, though. They stay at pace, and now it is the championship leader back in front. And with Ross in second and Buchanan in third, it is your top 3 in the championship, in the top 3 in the running order.
Yeah, and here they come down into MG, one of the greatest corners on this track. You throw the corner in through Lukey Heights, the left-hander, and then the track absolutely breaks away from you. You've got to be super early on the binders because you're fighting not only the natural braking force of the car, but you're also fighting against gravity. It pulls you down, and now we come onto the Gardner Straight. This is where that draft is going to come into play, and it looks like Stuart Ross is gaining.
Ross is gaining, looks to the inside in turn number 1. Does he get all the way clear out of Michael Broomhead? He does. And off to the southern loop, seals off the inside. And back to the race lead goes Stuart Ross. That shot down the front stretch really showed you pretty clearly how much this group of 7 cars have been able to break away from everybody else. They've got about 4 seconds back to Centric Ohio in position number 8 on back. So the top 7 blitzing, and blitzing for the race lead again. Here comes Broomhead inside and back around Stuart Ross.
Yeah, and he is making that inside line work coming through Honda. He gets those right side tires onto the curbing, and I think it's deliberately upsetting the balance of the car and allowing it to rotate a little bit better through the corner. It looks like Michael really and truly has that corner figured out. The problem is I've seen him lock up a couple of times here in the MG, and now Ross is going to have an inside line. Broomhead carries more speed through Lukey Heights.
Broomhead keeps it wide, and 1 car off track behind them. Matthew Murphy gets out of shape. There may have been contact with Murphy and others. I think there was a stack up. Nikotimbev may have been involved, and an AL stemmed from a bobble from Buchanan, but a tough blow there for Matthew Murphy, who will fall to P7 and will lose touch with his now a 6-car lead breakaway after a near accident there. And look at these top 3 back down the front straight. Plenty of drafted opportunity. Ross this time going to go to the outside, and why not 3 wide to the inside? It goes Mealing. Big advantage as he makes the throw down to turn 1. Can Mealing get clear? He does. The 2 for 1 to go to the top spot.
Yeah, but watch Ross here. This is a slightly off-camera corner, and he's not going to be able to carry that momentum around the outside, but gets a nice little squirt of speed midway through the southern loop. That was brilliant stuff there from Garrett Mealing. The wind not nearly as strong as I thought it was going to be here today, but it's still 2 miles an hour of a headwind coming down the front. But here we've got another battle coming into Honda.
Signature stuff in this BiS F1600 championship. We've seen great battles like this all season long, and another one to open the night here at Phillip Island. Ross ends up back in the lead for a moment. Little bit sideways that time of the entry for Mealing. Going to cost him a few tenths. And behind him, it is Buchanan side by side with Broomhead as they continue to fight for what is third and fourth position. And John Benvalid, we haven't talked much about him. He's been quiet so far in this race. Started back a couple of spots, rolled off of the grid in 11th, but has been able to race his way up here, and he is now solely a part of this battle, watching from P5.
Yeah, I mean, he is just holding on to the popcorn position here at this point. We take a look on board with him right now. As you said, big rise up through the field, up 6 positions, and I've got to think here that he is loving seeing these battles fight out in front of him. But now here is something crucial here at this point, Evan. We've only got 3 minutes to go with lap times at about 1 minute and 40 seconds. I think the likes of Ross and Mealing are starting to time their runs coming down through the last corner to figure out if they're going to be able to get ahead by a couple of millimeters when they cross the start-finish line.
And they are nose to gearbox right now, hunting to the outside. What a bold move that time for Mealing. But again, car gets squirrely when you make that kind of a wide entrance to the corner. It's going to cost him a spot as Buchanan was able to get by. And now Broomhead back on the bottom. How about 2 sets of 2 to the inside for the lead now? Challenging is Zach Buchanan. Almost all the way clear. The next corner to a right-hand turn forward. He's going to lose it. Buchanan spins from the lead on his own.
Oh, heartbreaking there for Buchanan. I think just gassed up the car a little bit too early, maybe caught some wheel spin and got that smoke around the outside. That's what happened there to him. But that effectively is going to break up a little bit of this gap at the front of the field where we were seeing the likes of Mealing, Broomhead, and Ross absolutely scrambling on top of each other. Here at this point, Ross has a little bit of a 3-second advantage, and that may not seem like a lot, folks, but considering what we've seen here today, that might as well be a country mile.
And that was a big moment in the championship because Broomhead came into this leading only that 2-point advantage over Buchanan. The self-spin for the 40 has dropped him back to 7th. And with Ross outrunning Broomhead at the moment, who sits back in 3rd. Ross was the one at a 13-point deficit. He's trying to position himself as 2nd in the points, trying to take over Buchanan, but he's got to be able to hold on and close this thing out still, and the driver trying to make sure that doesn't happen continues to be Garrett Mealing, completely removed for the championship battle that these other cars are involved in. He is here to play the super spoiler, wants to come in looking for his first win of this F1600 season. Makes the pass for the race lead again, but Ross swings right back down to the inside. This was the calamity corner just a lap ago for Buchanan. What can Ross do as he takes the wide entry to turn 4?
He's going to try to shut the door a little bit here on Mealing, but leaves him just enough space. Mealing later on the binders, taking that sort of Michael Broomhead line, using those inside curbs to help to rotate that number 197 car. And here, we've got to remember, they're coming around to the checkered flag here at this point. They cross the line with 1 minute and 35 seconds left to go. This is the fight for the win.
Less than a trip around this racetrack to settle it all, and now closing in. Broomhead from 3rd. Does he have something left into the final sector of corners? Looking for the move is Stuart Ross. Nothing there yet. Now swings to the inside for turn number 10 and gets the spot. Trying to stay topside. Can Garrett Mealing respond? Ross into the race lead. Final set of corners, 2 left-handers. Battle's going to be for 2nd because Broomhead going to go underneath Mealing, and that should keep Stuart Ross home free. Final time off the corner. They're going to get the draft coming to the stripe, but it is going to be too little, too late. 3 abreast, but the win goes to Stuart Ross.
Goes to Stuart Ross, but look at that gap for P2, 8 thousandths of a second in between them. And by the way, John Benveland setting the fastest lap of the race last time around. I believe that is his second fastest lap that he has set over the course of this entire season.
So a big moment when it mattered the most, and he does damage limitations. Stuart Ross will make up some points on your championship leader, Michael Broomhead, but it will not be in abundance as they are only separated by one single position. So as we get set to line them up right again for race number 2, let's take a look at your starting grid, which is also your race results. Stuart Ross gets the win with Michael Broomhead in second. They'll make up the front row with Garrett Mealing, John Benveland, and Hassan Econombev, your top 5. Cedric Ohayon came home 6th. It was Richard Swindles in 7th, Keenan Harris 8th, Robert Covey 9th, and Roger Sieber rounded out the top 10.
In 11th, it was Matthew Murphy, followed by Clovis Girard, then Nick Horvath, Micah Doran, and Zach Buchanan. Unfortunately, finishing all the way down in 15th. That's a big, big letdown there for Buchanan. He needed those points. Moving on from him, it's Graham Lobin, then Daniel Salmon, and Matthew Mielman rounding out your 18-car grid.
So it is a big blow. Buchanan's night clearly got worse after he initially dropped back to the number 7 spot. It's going to be easy to track him because he's got that bright yellow car. You can see him all the way down, second to last in line on that left-hand side from our perspective. That's going to line him up as they make the run down to the first corner on this lap. That's going to line him up in the inside position, perhaps an advantage. But he's got a long way to go, and really an opportunity for both Ross and Broomhead to add some further separation from the man who had been applying the pressure. He won 2 of the 3 feature races about a month ago at Zandvoort for round 4, and now Buchanan finds himself licking some wounds that were left from that tricky race number 1. So it looks like, talking about the start procedure, which was a big story in terms of the race start hiccup, DJ, took 5 minutes out of that 15-minute time allotment for race number 1. It does look like race control has these cars lined up stationary on the front stretch, and we will see if they do indeed opt to try again for the standing start. Looks like all the drivers have been able to make it to the grid this time around, which was the big issue.
Yeah, and it sounds like there was an error from race control. That's what we're reading here at this point. Just a keystroke command that was a little bit of a problem that set things off. But 5 minutes until the lights go out, everybody's on the grid. We're ready to go.
Stuart Ross going to be in control of the field. Championship leader Michael Broomhead right behind him. Race number 2 of 3 on the island. Looking for the lights to go green. Stuart Ross up front. Green lights are on. We're underway. And it's a clean start throughout. Couple of cars slower than others in the midfield. But Ross does lead the way to turn 1.
He's going to lead the way, and there you see these top 4 trying to do what they did in that previous race. Ross, Broomhead, Mealing, and Benveland all trying to get a little bit of a gap here on Keenan Harris and the rest of the field. They may want to play nice and play together here for the first 2 laps or so to try to build that gap so then they can really get into a scrap later on in this race.
Yeah, that's part of why they were able to fight so aggressively up front. To your point, is those top 7 initially were able to just build a gap and then be able to fight it out amongst themselves. But you got to be clean through the first couple of laps if you want to get there. Looking for the lead that time, but inside was Broomhead. Nothing cooking inside your top 5 single file for the time being as the leaderboard drops in on the left-hand side of your screen. Pretty orderly, I would say, for the top half of the field. Dorn with some issues. He'll drop a couple of spots in the midfield. As you can see back there, they're mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit side by side, but again, this gap now looking like it's a 3-car breakaway. Keenan Harris is about 0.5 of a second back here at this point. He's going to be trying to close on in. I'm not seeing a lot of scrappiness out of this top 3. I am seeing a little bit of movement by Mealing. Oh, Millen, Dorn, and Mielman look like they may have had a problem there. But I've got to say, Stuart Ross really pushing the limits on this car. He is tracking that number 67 out very, very wide on corner exit, just trying to negate any scrub of momentum that he can have.
And Economev also drops down the leaderboard, so he was involved to some description in that incident that took a couple of cars out of this race, and I think Buchanan barely able to avoid it. Buchanan's one of the fastest cars in the field, but has been struggling to make up positions. He's up to P11, but is already at a 4+ second disadvantage. Nobody is questioning that Buchanan has the speed, but the way round number 1 unraveled for him, as we see now Mealing to the inside of Broomhead. We saw this a lot in race number 1. The biggest deficit for Buchanan, DJ, not the spots, it's the clock, and the fact that it's going to cost him time making passes to already at a point where I think 4 seconds insurmountable if he thought he was going to win this one.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there on that big lockup from behind. I think that was Matthew Murphy. Lucky he didn't run into the side there of any other drivers. The one saving grace, though, for Zach Buchanan is going to be that invert in race number 3. He is going to be able to start up to the front of the field in race number 3, and that may just be enough to keep his title hopes alive coming into CTMP.
The invert may help him tonight, and of course, to your point, still an entire 3-race final round in Mosport to come in 2 weeks' time. Buchanan not going to lie down and let this championship go away. But at least for the moment, the story is Ross and Broomhead, first and second. Mealing tried to puncture that top 2, couldn't do it when Broomhead shook off a challenge, and then behind them, Keenan Harris watches on from 4th. Harris, a bit of a quiet night, similar to what John Benvilla did in the first race, but Keenan driven his way up from P8's done a good job, and now here we go in the battle for the race lead. Broomhead going to go to the outside, but he should clear before turn 1. Mealing now also going to go to the inside of Ross. 3 wide for a moment. Mealing's got second. Broomhead's got the lead. For how long, though? They touch that time into turn 2, and up the inside comes the one of Harris.
Nice move, but he's about to get swallowed up at the corner exit there at that point. I'm not sure what kind of juice that Ross and Mealing had under the cars, but they absolutely passed Keenan Harris like he was standing still. We ride on board with Benvelin right now, who's got the popcorn position. He's able to see everything play out in front of him. Got to jump on the binders there a little bit as everybody sorts of accordions up in front of him, and then they'll stretch out here. Mealing looking very, very aggressive, though. I've been keeping my eye on him here at this point, Evan, and he is really aggressively poking his nose this way and that way, and it's actually costing him a little bit of time because he's having to check up more, but side by side up at the top of the field.
Battle for the race lead continues on. This time, Broomhead on the inside of Mealing and company. Ross is able to hold them both off, though, for the moment, as Stuart Ross continues to do everything he can to defend that pole position, having led all the laps that have been completed so far in race number 2 on the afternoon. There's a look to the inside, further back in line. A couple of cars looking, searching, trying to find a way through. Is Cedric O'Hyan a part of this battle? So is Matthew Murphy, and I think that's kind of what caps out that top 7 car breakaway. And look at them fan out down the front straight, all the way to the inside and outside. 3 wide in the battle for the race lead. Ross drops to 3rd. They touch off and into the grass. A big spin for both Garrett Mealing and Michael Broomhead.
And that's going to gift control of this race back over to Stuart Ross. Talk about championship implications there for Broomhead. Just a little bit too aggressive by half, I think, between both Broomhead and Mealing there at that point. And now Mealing's got to deal with a little bit of Noah's Ark going on in front of him.
He has got 2x2 up the road at both Ross's championship competitor counterparts at Broomhead and Buchanan have been involved in incidents tonight. They now run 6th and 7th respectively. And Stuart Ross looking at a mammoth afternoon. Won the 2nd race in the season opening week at Road Atlanta, and then didn't take home another checkered flag until the 2nd race at Zandvoort about a month ago. 2 race wins over the course of 12 features so far this season. And if he can get the job done here, he'd be looking at a third win in the last 4 starts. So he is peaking at when it matters the most, but it is far from over. Keenan Harris, John Benvalid, and Matthew Murphy get to stack up to the plate. They want to do everything they can to steal the checkered flag for themselves as we are closing in on halfway through race number 2.
Yeah, and it looked like a little bit of a wide run there for Stuart Ross coming off of that final corner, and that's going to open up the door for Keenan Harris, and it's also going to open up the door for Benvalid. 3 wide again coming down the main straightaway, and Ross loses 2 spots in the space of a single corner.
And almost clear for the race lead. It was John Benvalid, but Keenan Harris able to just keep a tire in there, force the 08 car to yield. And what that did was allowed Harris to have the advantage into turn number 2, and that off entry for that third place car allowed Ross to get back by. So Benvalid hoping for the lead, settles for third. We're not done yet though. Here comes Ross again, turn number 4. They slow all the way down to just about 40 miles an hour through that right-hander, and they stayed through it side by side. Great stuff amongst the leaders. Corner exit will give favor to Keenan Harris. A little bit of a drafted opportunity here now down the de facto backstretch. Left-hand kink, turn number 7. Right-hand kink here, turn number 8, but still full throttle. They go to turn number 9, and here comes the look to the inside for Stuart Ross, and he's got it done.
That's a very aggressive move for Stuart Ross to be able to get that to play. Let's see if he's able to get the car slowed down enough for MG. I thought the rear end of that car was going to break away for sure, but he is able to make it play. Impressive driving here for the number 67. He knows he's got a quick car, and he does not want to give up this top spot.
They were 3 wide to the checkered flag at the end of the first race, and just watch this move. We know the opportunities are going to be there. Harris goes to the inside looking for the lead, but at the stripe, who was in front that time? What was the car playing defense? And Stuart Ross there. Keenan Harris and others on the attack. 3 wide to the very outside there. The aggressive move comes, no shocker, from the likes of Kneeling and others. Murphy, the big winner that time, he gets through 3 wide for the lead and now takes over the top spot. But no matter how many cars make a big move, DJ, at the line, it's been the leader off at 12. I don't know if these guys can afford to think that way with this many cars. Look at all 6 of them under a blanket. 2 wide again for the race lead off to turn number 4. But at least the defensive line to the stripe has been enough so far. How do you set yourself up to be the guy in that seat as there's a touch there? Murphy gets the gearbox of Ross. Small bubble, they both hang on.
I think you said it yourself there, Evan. I think you need to be in the lead. I think that is it. You need to be in the lead coming down into MG, and I think that's exactly what Ross was setting up, showing his nose there at this point. He does it again here as they run around, takes himself up into the lead of the race, defends a little bit, and he is positioning himself to make sure. Big look down to the inside there for Matthew Murphy. That number 53 looking aggressive here in the middle stage of this race.
5 minutes to go, and watch this. Turn 11, left-hander 12. Almost certainly second place runner Keenan Harris going to be in the leader, having a look at the lead when they get down to 1. But the question is, can you get that toe? Can you get that draft before the start finish? And the answer is he can't. He's just going to simply stay on the gearbox. The race leader that time, it actually loosened up. Stuart Ross got the back end of that car a little bit squirrely. I think these drivers starting to experiment now. If I'm not in the lead, what can I do through that 11 and 12 complex to make a pass for the lead? And if it can't happen there, where does the pass for the race lead need to happen? Does it happen on the front stretch the lap prior to the checkered flag coming to the white flag? Or does it happen here where we saw the aggressive pass for the lead happen a couple of laps ago from Ross? And it's this de facto backstretch, if you will, high speed part of the racetrack, right-hander 4. You can set up for it here. Harris makes the pass, takes it away from Ross, and then they'll come through another pretty tight left-hand turn number 6. And then right here, the second good drafting opportunity. Is this a potential spot on the racetrack to make that race-winning pass?
Well, I think what we've seen from Stuart Ross is, yes, he's been able to make it work through Lukey Heights. Let's see, though, if Keenan Harris decides to employ a little bit of an alternate strategy, that's exactly what he does. He now holds the inside line, forcing Ross on the outside, which will be then flipping back on itself, the inside for the next corner. But Murphy sending a big move up into the inside. This could scupper any momentum that Ross has here at this point. If he's got to be fighting with it, Keenan Harris in the number 1 is loving this. He's scampering off to a victory here.
He is pulling away by a tenth a second every single corner that these cars stay side by side. And it all started, to your point, by forcing Ross to go to the outside as they came through turn number 9. It got that car a little bit upset. It opened up the door for Matthew Murphy to be the aggressor, and that may be the defensive key if you're the leader on the white flag lap of this race, is you cannot afford to let a car to your inside in 9. Big swing at the top spot that time at a Matthew Murphy. That car nearly broke loose through the southern loop, catches on, and now that advantage for Harris evaporated. I don't think anybody, just with the way these cars drive and the way this track presents those drafting opportunities, I don't think anyone's going to be able to run away and check out, but it's all going to come down to those final moves, and I think Harris has been doing a good job of practicing what would I do on the defensive line, and now it's time to put that into action. We should be seeing the white flag the next time by. Here comes Murphy down the back straight, gets to the left-hand side of the 1 car. That's what Harris does not want to have happen, because it's going to set up right here, turn number 9. Can Murphy do anything on the inside? He can. Even the 1 car topside, that outside lane struggles. He'll go to the inside and now seal off the crossover. Aggressive stuff from Murphy in the battle for the race lead.
Yeah, very aggressive stuff here. He knows where he wants to position that car. I think to our earlier point here, Evan, it is whoever gets to the inside coming through Hayshed and Lukey Heights, that's turns 8 and 9, whoever is able to position the car on the inside and be ahead by the time they get down into that right-handed hairpin of MG, that is who is going to win this race, as here's that test of the drag to the finish. Murphy was ahead by a whisker at the line, but they're 2 by 2 coming down into Dewan Corner. This is the battle for the win.
And the key is going to be, you need to be in second spot if you want to set the leader up, in theory, to make that pass through the 7-9 complex. A bit of a washout there, though, for Matthew Murphy. It gives a bit of pad to Harris. That's not my concern. My concern's the challenge from behind, because here comes Stuart Ross, and the battle right now is only for P2.
Yeah, and Ross knows how to make that move up into Hayshed and Lukey Heights work out to perfection. Murphy takes a big look down to the inside. Spin in front for Harris.
Around goes the race leader, Keenan Harris, I believe unassisted. Saw the big swing coming from Murphy, drove it in too deep, lost the handle. Murphy leads this race now with a half a lap to go. The battle side by side, second behind him. The advantage, Broomhead is back. Ross is second. Here comes Zach Buchanan in the number 4 spot, but they're all going to slow each other down. Murphy leads to the checkpoint of turn number 10. Now he just needs to seal the deal. Right-hander 10, left-hander 11. Is there going to be enough of a draft from behind? Can Michael Broomhead come back from a spin to get the win? Final time, left hand, turn number 12. He's going to get the draft, but he's not going to have enough asphalt. Here they come to the start finish. Broomhead tries, but it's not going to be enough. Checkered flag, and the win goes to Matthew Murphy.
His first win of the season here for Matthew Murphy. Indeed, I believe this may be only his 3rd podium on the year, but talk about a drive here for that number 53. And starting from 11th position, who says you can't pass here?
He was able to slice through the field. Matthew Murphy, an impressive story. And as we watched the battle up front, at one point it seemed all but an invocation for Stuart Ross to be a perennial driver at the top of maybe the championship standings, with Buchanan and Broomhead at one point falling down to 7th and 8th position, DJ. And in the end, Broomhead beats Ross in this race, coming back for the second. Ross in third, and Buchanan right there in fourth. It seemed like Ross had a huge opportunity to collect a slew of points over his championship competitors, and in the end, they all finish on top of each other.
Yeah, they really and truly did. I mean, just talk about a remarkable run there, and talk about an absolutely fantastic way to bring us into the final event of this night. I mean, everything topsy-turvy here at this point as they try to set themselves up. This is remarkable.
Still waiting on the last couple of cars to come across the start-finish line, and then we'll take a look at your full race results for race number 2. And I think with Graham Lobin crossing the stripe, that will do it for our second race on the island. So let's take a look at your full race results for the second feature race of the night, and it is the first race win of the season for Matthew Murphy, who's able to steal the checkered flag and the closing laps of this one. It's an impressive drive for him, and then we talked extensively about these three. Broomhead comes back for the P2, snatches it from Stuart Ross. Buchanan in fourth. Those are your top three drivers in the championship, coming home in second, third, and fourth. Bit of a quiet one from there on back. How about Cedric O'Hyan is quietly putting together a good program tonight? A P6 in the first race and a P5 in the second one. He finishes ahead of Keaton Harris in the number 6 spot. Roger Sieber, a night best P7 for him. Garrett Mealing had been fighting for the win all night long, slips back from third, settles for P8. Nick Horvath in the top 10 in ninth, and Clovis Gerard rounds out your top 10.
In 11th place, it was Swindells, followed by Mielman, then Daniel Salmon, Nikodembev there in 14th, Dorn, Covey, Lobin, and unfortunately, Ben Valid, I saw the update here at this point, had an internet connection issue, and that's what forced him to be 2 laps down.
Well, let's look top to bottom at your full race results for race number 2 on the year. The night had started with Ross taking checkered flag at number 3, and Murphy takes checkered flag at number 1, and inserted himself great into the conversation for the lead. And I think it gives us some credit too, slightly, DJ, that we were kind of hypothesizing through that entire one. Where's the checkpoint? Where do you want to be on the last lap of this race? The battle for second played a huge factor in it. Murphy was relatively uncontested, but he had the lead into turn number 9, and that's when it felt pretty official. So he puts himself in a great position, but is going to have some work to do with the invert coming up next. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, get a word from a couple of our partners, and when we come back, the invert is in action, and the third and final feature race of the night is next. You're watching the BiS Formula 1600 Championship Series on Podium.
If you really want to improve your driving technique, you cannot just ask someone to tell you when to brake or when to turn. You have to learn how the car wants you to drive it. You have to learn car handling techniques, and that's where I excel at. The Motor Racing Checklist is the work of my life, currently with 2,000 drivers registered, and here's the thing. If you don't improve in 30 days, you get your money back. So give it a try. If you have any questions, just send me a message. I'm always available to answering these questions. This course is made for high-level drivers. If you're a beginner, you're gonna use it for a long time, because all these concepts will help you right away, but the more you improve, the more you understand them, and then you're able to squeeze every concept to the limit, and you're gonna gain precision to be able to apply them in a very subtle way that most people don't even notice a difference in your driving. But those are the small things that make you improve a tenth per corner, and then if you just add up those tenths, you realize you're 1 second faster than everyone else. Give it a try. If you have any question, just send me a message.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
And back live on Phillip Island as Podium's coverage of the BiS F1600 Championship Series continues here tonight with round number 5 of 6. And man, has it been a night so far. 3 wide in the battle for the win for the first race, and then a big championship point swing with Stuart Ross getting caught by some of his championship counterparts, and Matthew Murphy stealing the win in race number 2. DJ has got us set up for a consequential finale here at Phillip Island with the invert set to kick in.
Yeah, and that's really going to change things around here for these drivers, but not nearly as much as we thought it was going to, Evan. I mean, we were looking at Buchanan maybe to be able to claw some points back here, but able to finish in the top 5 once again. He's going to be in a strong position here no matter what.
And they're all going to be right in the middle of the Hornet's nest together. Going to be the lowest position that many of those top championship drivers have had to start a race in. Maybe the poor finish in race number 1 and the bounce back for the likes of Buchanan, maybe that can benefit him from the midfield. But let's take a look at your starting grid for the third and final race. And again, P10 in race 2 means pole for this one for Clovis Gerard. He will start from the front row and will be joined by Nick Horvath alongside. Garrett Mealing gets a second shot. He got a third earlier tonight. He starts in third for this one, and Roger Sieber will roll from the number 4 spot. Keenan Harris will start in P5 ahead of Cedric O'Hyan to his left in the number 6 spot. And then the heavy hitters. Zach Buchanan will roll from a 7th position. Has had a good car, but no real big results to show for it. A 15th and a 4th so far. Stuart Ross alongside an 8th. He's got a win and a 3rd. And then Michael Broomhead, 2 back-to-back P2 finishes tonight. He looks to get one more out of it starting from 9th. And Matthew Murphy won the previous one. He gets flipped all the way back to P10.
Moving back into the drivers that didn't have that invert to help them, Greg Millen in 11th, followed by Matthew Mielman, Daniel Salmon, Assad Nikodembev, then Micah Doran, Robert Covey, Graham Loban, and John Van Vliet, who has been able to re-jump and jump back into the session. So good there for him.
It's good that he's going to get a second opportunity at this one. We know John has got some speed, finished 4th in the first race. 18th is going to be a tall order, but to that point, your top finishers in the second race, Murphy started 11th, he won it. Buchanan started 15th, he got 4th. It's all possible. The final seconds tick away on the grid, and we're ready for the final feature race of the afternoon in round number 5 of this championship. Let's go racing at Phillip Island. Green flag in the air.
Right, looks like a good clean getaway here from all of the drivers up at the front of the field. Gerard's going to be able to lead off. Mealing, I think, is the driver to watch out for here at this point as he's going to start to push his way ahead. Almost contact there with him and Horvath is Keenan Harris, another driver to watch out for, who was quick in race 2, tries to make his way around the outside.
Being the aggressor, wide side for Harris. Oh, and a big bobble there and off into the grass. Big issues as dropping down goes Garrett Mealing. Big bobble takes him out of the top 10 just like that, and it gives Gerard a massive 7/10 of a second advantage over the fight for second that you're looking at now. Harris defensive on Horvath, and behind them, O'Hyan makes the dive down on the inside of Roger Sieber.
Yeah, he's going to try to make that move play here at this point. Look at Buchanan, though, already fighting his way up through the field. So just to the outside of Sieber, there's a little bit of ghost contact, and that's going to be, yeah, that's Sieber around.
So Sieber squeezed on the inside, maybe a slight touch from the outside of Buchanan. Sieber spins, gets back going, but not before he falls all the way down the running order to P18. Penthouse to the outhouse for, one of the guys who had been steadily improving all night long. And those early passes for Buchanan, that's big. He wants to be the first of the Buchanan, Ross, Broomhead collective. He wants to lead those three through the field. Keep your fellow championship cars at bay. Keep them in your rear view mirror. And it's pretty impossible to miss the 40 car. It's bright yellow as the leaders mixing it up side by side down the front straight. First look at the race lead in this race for Keenan Harris.
Yep, he's going to be going for it here at this point, but he's got Nick Horvath for company as Horvath makes a big move down to the inside here. Buchanan continues to work his way around in fifth. Almost contact there in the front of the field here at this point, but it's going to be Harris holding it out here as they run.
So Harris shakes it off. Horvath a little bit slow then for the long way around. Turn number 2 and a bit of a touch there. Lucky to get away with that one. Gerard got into the left rear of Nick Horvath. Car broke sideways a little bit. We've seen much lighter touches than that send cars off and into the dirt tonight. Not this case. And now a rare move trying to go the wide side around that corner. Was Horvath unable to make it happen, but he does defend second, and they're side by side behind him. It's the white 27 car on the move. That's Clovis Gerard making the pass on Ohio.
Yeah, Gerard just taking good heads up there at this point. Ohio trying to move his way forward. Stuart Ross and Zach Buchanan going to be side by side as they work their way up the hill right now at this point. But Gerard holding station right now as battles taking place in front of him, battles taking place behind him. He's just got to keep a cool head.
We've seen this every race so far, a quick 5, 6, 7 car breakaway. You pick your flavor, how many cars want to be in it, but they separate themselves from the field, and at some point it gives. These 7, 6 car breakaways haven't been able to last through the race. There's always been a mistake. There's always been a spin. Who from this lead breakaway of about the top 7 is going to be able to continue through? And a big move for Stuart Ross and the fact that he's been able to get around championship competitor in Buchanan behind him and looking for more. Ross going to go up the inside, makes a move on Ohio, now tries to slice back on Gerard. Not going to get the 2-for-1 special yet. He's posted up on the outside. Could he go the long way around the corner? There's contact from behind because getting desperate with Cedric Ohayon.
Yeah, Ohio made a little bit of contact there, and that opens up the door for Zach Buchanan, who says, thank you very much. I would like that position right now, but we've got to keep our eye on this, as this is Ross and Gerard side by side coming down into the braking zone for Honda here at this point. It's a stack up. Ohio gets in too deep, makes contact with the back of Buchanan.
Could have been worse for Ohio. He will lose time, but was able to catch the Lima Racing car before it went all the way around. But it does drop him to the tail end of the top 7 breakaway, and took him a little bit of time to get the ship righted. He may have lost too much time to stay a part of this battle. Meanwhile, Zach Buchanan inside move in that turn 8 complex to complete the pass there onto Clovis Gerard. Buchanan up to a race high P4, but he's chasing now because Ross was able to get ahead of him. Ross leads the contingent in those big 3 in terms of the championship. There's a good look on the board with Clovis Gerard and how hard he's got to work that 27 car to get around this place. That's Broomhead to his outside, making the pass. Gerard slides to P6.
Yeah, and Broomhead sent a big move down to the inside of MG. That's how he set himself up for that run. Just good heads up there, as now this field largely single files out, although Harris and Horvath going to be side by side up at the front. Gerard gets a nice little heap of draft. 3 wide up at the front of the field.
3 wide battle for the race lead again. Who gives into turn number 1? Inside to out is where the benefit lies. Nick Horvath is going to drop all the way to 3rd. Stuart Ross, the big winner, who was able to clear them all before the left-hander. Turn number 2, the southern loop. And Ross has been able to go from P8 to the race lead. How do Buchanan and Broomhead respond? They've both got speed, but they have not made the moves with the same amount of ease. They're still back in 4th and 5th with some work to do. I think they're hoping that Harris, Horvath, who are right now fighting for 2nd, continue to give some grief to the race leader. That would help their cause.
Yeah, it certainly would, and I got to give credit there to Nick Horvath. That was a big move around the outside of Honda. I did not think that was going to work, but Horvath was able to carry just enough momentum around that corner to be able to keep things to play and get himself up into that P2 spot. Here, as we watch right now, this is the melee in the back of the field. Harris, Buchanan, Broomhead. This battle between Buchanan and Broomhead, this isn't just a battle on track here, Evan. This is a battle for the championship.
They entered tonight separated by the slimmest of margins. Broomhead over Buchanan by 2 and over Ross by 13. But it has been the night so far for Stuart Ross and company. We have seen him maybe leave points on the table and some of these other ones settling for third in race number 2. But all in all, his first and his third right there lockstep with Buchanan second in a second. 3 wide again in the battle for the race lead. It's Harris, though, on the very outside who is going to clear Ross for the moment, take over the race lead. Horvath thought about second, can't do it. Does that open the opportunity for the all-yellow Buchanan car? It does, because missing turn 2 was Nick Horvath, and it's going to drop him all the way to P6.
And look at this, Stuart Ross not ready to back out of it here at this point. He's got to move on Keenan Harris, and enough to be able to slot in front of him and block off that inside line. But Buchanan says, I'd like a little bit of that, please. He tries to pull a little bit of the move that we saw earlier from Horvath, but it's not going to play out, and indeed it opens up the door here for Michael Broomhead.
And Keenan Harris has got to have a taste of the championship scaries, because in front and behind him are the top cars in this title fight who are not going to give him an inch more than he absolutely needs. You know that Buchanan, you know that Broomhead going to be as aggressive as possible to prevent Stuart Ross from getting the bulk of the points in the championship here tonight in round 5 on the island. So Ross doing everything he can to build a gap. No race leader has ever been able to break that toe, break the draft, and get away at all tonight. Every single battle's come down to the final lap of this race, but a brief moment in time where maybe for the first time all night, I didn't see a pass in the top 5 that time into turn number 9. So a brief moment, but here we go. Long straightaway, big gaps, but it's going to be in big closing rates here. Does anybody make a move or a look down to turn 1?
Keep your eye on that yellow machine here of Buchanan, and keep your eye here on that blue and red machine of Broomhead. They had the speed, but Broomhead in particular had to back off. Gerard, Horvath, and Mealing in a nice little battle, though, back for P5.
Looking at the intervals, it is a top 4 break ahead of the battle between Horvath, Gerard, and Mealing. That trio you look at there for 5th on back, and as they continue to fight, it is going to allow those drivers in the top 4 to break away just a little more. Is it going to be a 4-car battle for the race win here at Phillip Island? Battles aplenty. Looks like 3rd place under fire up in front as Broomhead inside turn 4 to complete the pass that time on Zach Buchanan.
Yeah, but he's going to run wide coming down through Siberia. That's going to open back up the door here for Zach Buchanan. Broomhead tries to give him a little bit of a pinch, but it's not going to play out. Buchanan's going to have that preferred line coming up through Lukey Heights. He's just got to stick with it coming through Hayshed. He's done that, and this should give him a little bit of an advantage, but Broomhead's found some grip there on the outside.
Broomhead trying to make the outside work. Nobody's been able to do that so far tonight. Keeps it all the way to the inside in turn number 10. Could he possibly make it stick? Buchanan equally as good outside in turn 10, and he will hold on defensively in the end. But Broomhead putting that car in places we have not seen drivers find success tonight. That was a consequential battle, though. They're going to go side by side on the front straight here, but I was just talking, DJ, how those top 4 were going to pull away from 5th on back. Well, the battle between Buchanan and Broomhead has invited this. Here it comes to the inside, Nick Horvath, and now they've got to deal with more cars preventing them from trying to catch those top 2. Could Ross and Harris possibly pull away and settle the battle for the win out amongst the 2 of them?
4.5 minutes left to go. I think that's roughly going to be 2 minutes to go at the line. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Broomhead's got no intent in playing nice here at this point. He's going to push himself around the outside and try to take that line coming down into Honda. Almost contact there between the 2. Broomhead gets a little bit pushed offline. Buchanan gains the advantage, but it's still 0.7 of a second back up to Harris.
And it's almost what those cars needed, because for the first time in about 2 laps, Buchanan and Broomhead not stuck playing defense in some regard. They would rather Mealing and Horvath fight between themselves so they could catch the leaders. Although here comes Broomhead again. Long way around turn 8, but it sets him up right here inside of turn number 9. It's been the ticket to be tonight. And can he clear all the way? Buchanan, what a drive back down the inside, no! But it's too much. Had to overdrive the corner to make that wide exit at turn number 9 work. He's frustrated on the radio, and Buchanan takes himself out of the battle.
And indeed, as they come to the line here at this point, 3 minutes and change left to go. This is, I think, going to be the white flag lap here for these drivers. It's side by side for the front of the field.
Battle for the race lead is on. 2 laps to go here at the Phillip Island circuit. Ross leads Harris. They are 1.5 seconds ahead of the battle for third. I don't think Michael Broomhead gets an opportunity to fight for the win, and Stuart Ross may walk out as the victor in the championship battle if things can hold for him. Harris took a look, couldn't make it stick that time. He'll line up and try again. The battle for third now 1.6 seconds to the rear. Broomhead will have to defend against Mealing and Horvath to the end of this race. They'll make a dive into the corner. That's the offensive move from Garrett Mealing to take the spot.
And we've seen Mealing be very, very aggressive over the course of this entire event. He is not afraid to chuck that car down into the corner. He is not afraid to get his elbows out. But I think here for Broomhead, that is going to be the problem, that with him in front right now, he has just got to hope that Mealing's got the speed to close down 1.5 seconds. And with the white flag nearing to come out, although it may not be, we're going to have to see what the time is as they cross the stripe. I don't think they're going to have time to close it in.
And the challenge for Broomhead here is there's nothing to gain out the front. All he can lose here is more spots. There's nothing else to gain. He's going to want to get back to Mealing, but I wonder if Broomhead did something to that car. It is struggling. It was slipping and sliding the entire time through that set of corners. And as the clock does get under 1 minute and 40 seconds, it will be the white flag this time by. All kinds of battles. Battling 3 wide back there for fourth, and a battle side by side for the lead at the front. Stuart Ross goes back to the race lead.
Ross back to the race lead, but as we talked about, car off, that's Horvath.
Horvath off into the grass. He's going to drop down the leaderboard. Broomhead reassumes P4, but is too far back from Mealing, who should be able to cruise to second, or third, I should say. Means the battle that you got to watch for the race lead. Here they come. Race leader Ross under fire. For here comes the challenge, courtesy of Keenan Harris.
Here he comes, poking his nose to the inside, and I think they've got to worry a little bit about this. Mealing's not too terribly far behind them. If they get into a real knockout slugfest here at this point, this could be an absolute battle to the line, but we'll have to wait and see. Ross has got an advantage as they climb the hill.
Can Harris get the run? It seems like you need to have it by turn 9 if you want to lead at the start-finish. But as they get to Lukey Heights, it's not going to happen. Harris still continuing to try to close the gap. It's a 0.3 of a second difference. Mealing watching on from third, but Stuart Ross only going to have to hang on. Can, for the first time this season, he get 2 race wins in a single night. Harris going to try to point and shoot. Final time at a turn number 12, but it is a short run to the stripe. Ross is going to get the draft. Harris, does he go for the move? Looks to the outside, defending to the inside. They touch to the stripe, and on the inside, Stuart Ross hangs on by 1/100th of a second to win the race.
Oh my goodness gracious, talk about a close run. Absolutely fantastic stuff. That is exactly what you want to see play out in a race such as this.
We had yet to see that second place car get the run necessary. We almost said that you almost had to be the leader into the final corner, but I'll tell you what, I think that Keenan Harris had the speed. but he was drifting to the left side of the racetrack to try to get the draft off of Stuart Ross, and when they touched, it brought them down to the same pace. It took that speed away from Harris, and they were pretty much locked in with each other from that point to the stripe, and oh, what could have been. And how about Stuart Ross? We were calling his third place finish in race number 2 a bit of a letdown, DJ. Well, for the second race of 3 tonight, not only does he win it, but he finishes, of course, ahead of all of his fellow championship counterparts. That's a big move for the guy who was on the bubble of maybe being talked about being too far away from the top spot leaving tonight. Instead, I think he has cemented himself as a contender with 1 week left.
Yeah, this is an absolutely mega result here for Stuart Ross. This is exactly what he needed to have happen when we talk about this closing down on the end of the season. This is about as perfect as Stuart could have drawn it up, especially with Broomhead and Buchanan finishing 5th and 6th. I don't have the mental acuity to do that math here at this point, but I think we're going to be pretty darn close when we come into CTMP.
Well, the cars have crossed the stripe. Let's take a look at our race results from this third and final feature of the afternoon. And again, look at that margin of victory. They saved the best for last, 0.010. The gap for Stuart Ross over Keenan Harris. And Harris improved throughout the night at 8th, a 6th, and a 2nd. How about a hats off to our highest non-championship battle drivers, we'll say, over the course of this third race. Gerard ends up ahead of Broomhead in the end. That's another consequential one, DJ, because Broomhead, therefore, settling for P5. Zach Buchanan settling for P6. The biggest gap we saw between those top 3 in the championship all night. They all finish ahead of Benvalid, Horvath, Nikotimbev, and Murphy, your top 10.
Yeah, as we move on down into P11, it was Swindells, followed by Cedric Ohayon, then Matthew Millman there in P13. Then it was Robert Covey, Micah Doran, and Daniel Salmon, all 3 of them finishing multiple laps down. Sieber and Loban, both DNSs here in this third race.
Well, that's a look top to bottom at our full race results, and I believe we have our top finishers standing by. So let's start on the top step of the podium. Stuart Ross takes home 2 race wins on the afternoon at Phillip Island. We're with the driver of the 67 car now, and Stuart, first off, congratulations. This season's getting down to the end of it, and you pull out your best performance so far this year with 2 out of 3 wins.
Yeah, thank you. I finally got some luck in this race, honestly, with no major incidents and just a couple wheel bangs there, here and there.
Talk us through this one as a whole. It starts early on. Race number 1, battling with Broomhead. There's an issue for Zach Buchanan that drops him back. And then that kind of seemed, at least for us, to be the story where you were in relation to those 2, given how close the 3 of you are in the championship. When you're fighting 2, often 3 wide even at times, can you allow yourself to think of, hey, the guys I'm racing with, or for the championship, this is really important? Or at that point, are you so enthralled in the battle that that kind of mathematical part of the equation doesn't come into it?
I'm always kind of thinking about if I make it 3 wide here and I get crashed out, how is this gonna hurt my points? And I don't make a lot of moves that I could make just because of the risk, and I don't want to. I want to keep a good points tally throughout the weekend.
Well, I mentioned first time this season you've got 2 race wins on a night. We saw you win back at Road Atlanta early in the year, but you've really turned it up. You have won 3 of the last 4 races. That includes, of course, 1 a couple of weeks back at Zandvoort and 2 here tonight. What feels different for you as we close in on the end of this championship that you're in your best form?
I don't know. I'm just just happier in general, and I think I'm just driving better. I've just improved over the months, just been practicing a bit on my own, and I think I'm just improving gradually. So should be even better at the end of the year, hopefully.
Well, the end of the year is coming up not too far from now, because in 2 weeks' time, we go racing at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It is the championship race for this BiS Formula 1600 Championship Series. You are squarely in this championship fight alongside the likes of Zach and Michael. how does that racetrack align with what you like as a driver, and how would you feel going into that one for that track being the one to decide this?
I feel quite good going into Mosport. It's a track I like to drive just on my own for fun, and the fast, long corners suit me better. I think I gain more time in the fast corners than I do in the slow corners, so Mosport should be a good track for me for the final race.
Well, we look forward to catching you and everybody else duke it out at that one. Stuart, at least for here tonight, the sponsors, the shout-outs, the folks who makes it happen, who do you want to say hi to?
I want to say hi to my dad, who is watching me downstairs, and Cassandra, who's watching me a couple 20 minutes away and cheering me on.
We appreciate them, and we appreciate you for putting on a show tonight, Stuart. Congratulations on the wins, and try to get some sleep in the next 2 weeks. We're looking forward to what that championship battle's like.
Yeah, thank you.
That is your big winner tonight. Stuart Ross takes home 2 of the 3 checkered flags on the night. Well, normally we'll talk to Michael Broomhead regardless, but tonight for good reason. He'll walk out with a great average finish, a P2, and of course, it'll be a 5th in the end, but for this 3rd and final one, but it's a big night, DJ, for Mike Broomhead in the championship. Let's see if we can get him next.
Yeah, indeed. Michael Broomhead. Mike, a good run here for you. Able to finish ahead of Buchanan. Maybe you've lost a little bit of ground to Stuart Ross, but at the end of the day, you've got to feel pretty good walking out of here.
Yeah, I am feeling pretty good. That was a ton of fun. This track never ceases to, deliver such intense racing. Nobody can get away from each other. So, it's back and forth, just hanging it out 3 wide, 4 wide sometimes. And we had that last season and now this season again. So really happy with that.
Well, really, really happy with it. I mean, talk to me about a little bit of the recovery that you had to do coming through the first 2 races. Things got a little bit side by side, a little bit close. Did you have to kind of settle yourself down a little bit and get yourself ahead, or was it all just racing as usual?
Yeah, in all honesty, this track, because the draft is so huge, you sort of have to place yourself in the right spot so many seconds back or so many tenths back in order to get the best run. So, it's all about planning for that line. So, yeah, I had to fight back, get through the pack a little bit. And obviously, I'm going to claim the mess up in the first race. I pressed the wrong button and it started the grid immediately. So we try to make the best of a rolling start there. But, yeah, just coming back through and just picking them off one at a time and just planning what I was going to do the next lap. And the 3rd race, it didn't really work out, but the first 2 were okay.
Yeah, and now as we turn ahead here, looking ahead to CTMP in a couple of weeks' time, how do you fancy your chances there?
Pretty good. I'm sure a lot of the others will say the same thing. Mosport is a lot of our home track. A few of us have driven it in these cars in real life as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, it will be similar to this. A lot of fast corners, a lot of drafting. So it will be intense. And again, nobody will be able to get away. So, everything's going to go down to the wire. And hopefully we put on a good show for everybody else.
Well, I have no doubt that you guys will be able to put on a good show, my friend. Anybody you want to give a shout out to here tonight?
Yeah, just everybody that's come out. Obviously, we've got Matt and Garrett up there. But Roger Siebert's the first time out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And everybody, the regulars and, people that come out week in, week out. And, of course, Podium Esports for making it happen as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Congratulations on a great run here this weekend, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
We'll continue things on. I'm not seeing Keenan Harris, who comes home in 2nd spot, so I think we'll grab Garrett Mealing. He gets a 3rd place finish in this final one, but it's a great night for Garrett, and the battles all night long, and we're with the driver of the 197 machine now. Garrett, first off, congratulations. A solid night, a 3rd, an 8th, and a 3rd. You guys were in the conversation every single time.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoy this track. I haven't driven it a lot, but started practicing earlier this week.
We really saw these races, I'm not going to say follow the same script, but have a similar theme to them. It always seemed like there was a quick break of about 6, 7-ish or so cars that would break out in front, and then they would fight out relatively amongst themselves. At some point, there would be a touch, a spin, and then it would kind of, get split up to 4 or 3 that would battle for the win. But it seemed like if you did not have a good start, you were not going to be in the conversation. How big was it for you to obviously qualify up front to be in the battle early, but then it didn't even seem like the invert and all of that through the midway point slowed you down either? Well,
I got messed up a little bit in the second race there. I touched Michael, and that it's not the best thing to do on your first race out with these boys, so I wasn't super pumped about that. But managed to come back to 8th and start 3rd, and then first or second turn in the final, I put it in the grass for a second, so I had to fight back through about 10 cars. But that makes it fun, and the invert grid is definitely spices things up a bit, so it's entertaining for sure.
We were trying to hypothesize, because there was always 2, 3, 4 cars in the battle for the race lead, kind of where you wanted to be to make some of those last moves. Obviously, that big run down the front straight to turn number 1, plenty of up-passing opportunities. It seemed like the draft was not enough to get somebody to the stripe if you were trailing off at 12, but certainly enough to make a move down into turn number 1. And then we even saw some drivers real aggressive through that 7, 8, 9 complex on the back straight. How big was that draft, and how aware were you of that when you were trying to set up your passes, or was it more so just kind of take what they were given to you?
I was being real careful with where I left. I don't know what it is, probably the big dipper there before the long straight, the right-hander. I was being real careful with my gap to the people behind me and the people in front of me, because if they're within 6 or 7 tenths, they might get you by the line. So on the final, there, I had a rough lap. I think I overheated my tires the lap before, so the car was a little slow. But yeah, if you're within 5 or 6 tenths, you are probably getting past before the finish line. Around that 8, 9, 10 or 1 second range, then you might be okay. But yeah, into turn 1 is scary, and going too wide into there is even scarier.
Well, for your first time battling out with some of these guys, it's a good showing in the conversation all night long, and right there on pace with kind of the big 3 that we had spent a lot of the night talking about: Broomhead, Buchanan, and Ross, who are fighting for that championship. Do you have fun out there? Will we see you again in 2 weeks when we head to Motorsport?
Unfortunately, I am in Mexico in 2 weeks, so I won't be there in 2 weeks, but I will be there for Bathurst. Bathurst is one of my favorite tracks, so I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm sure I'll be back in the future and try and do the whole series.
Well, I think that's a valid enough excuse to not be here in 2 weeks' time, but that King of the Hill rescheduled for March 27th should be a fun one. Garrett, we'll let you get out of here. I know it's a long night of battling, but we appreciate your time, and congratulations on the good results.
Thank you very much.
So that is a chat down trackside with the driver who comes home in what is going to be 3rd in this feature race number 3. He got a 3rd, an 8th, and a 3rd total over the course of the night, and we appreciate him giving us some time to chat post-race. And I believe our producer downstairs can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see anybody else from inside of the top 5 available to chat with us, DJ, so that might be it in terms of driver availability, but we thank all of them for giving us some time to chat and debrief. And I always sound like a broken record if I say the same thing every single week, but the same is true for Road Atlanta, for Chicago, for Donington, Zandvoort, now here tonight at Phillip Island. These races continue to deliver in this F1600 championship, and I think there's even more to talk about now late in the season than at the start, because not only did we have great battling for the lead throughout the pack, but all of the big moments tonight seem to be tied to the championship, and that is what makes these races so thrilling.
Yeah, exactly, Evan. It's absolutely fantastic to see everybody duking it out here in the way that we were. I mean, whether we were talking about the battle with Broomhead and Buchanan, or whether we were talking about Stuart Ross, these championship implications continue to play out here. And I am so excited to see what happens at CTMP in 2 weeks' time, because as you heard a couple of the drivers say, particularly Mike Broomhead, that track is going to be a lot of the same here. It's going to have a lot of the same dynamics that we had at Phillip Island, and it is a perfect way to end out this season.
And this series has such a Canadian-heavy presence, with the driver base. They are no strangers to racing at Motorsport. Through even some of the other BiS series, Motorsport makes multiple calendar appearances. So some of the drivers even made the note to us here tonight that, I haven't raced a ton at this racetrack. It's a fun one, but it is not a, top 5 most raced on one on the service. And maybe that's, unjust to how fun the circuit is. We're going to go into Motorsport, which is figuratively and literally, I think, the backyard for a lot of these drivers. One, it's maybe for a lot of them the closest racetrack that they may have gone to a lot in real life. But when you identify with a racetrack like that, you probably drive it on the sim more than others. So we're going to be seeing the very best of everybody when we go to that race in 2 weeks to determine the champion.
Yeah, you couldn't be more correct about that. If you are close to a racetrack, if you have a mental, emotional bond to a racetrack, you're going to go out and drive it. I happen to be that way with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I recognize that the road course isn't the best in the world, but that's what I run constantly because that's where I'm from, and that's my baby. And the same is true for all of these runners out there. They have put in so many laps at Mosport that it really and truly is going to be the best of the best taking out there. I think you're going to see a lot of very close competitors and a lot of very, very close wheel-to-wheel action that you may not see on other series. I mean, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. We could see 2, maybe even 3 wide through Clayton and Quebec. It's going to be really fun to watch.
And you're not going to want to miss that one. Again, that'll be in 2 weeks' time. Of course, want to thank everybody who made tonight's broadcast possible. That includes all of our presenting partners at both MotorRacingChecklist.com 2.0 and our friends over at Turn 1 Sim Racing. But DJ, I'll bounce back to you one more time because a QR code is going to come up on the screen. And if you are interested after watching tonight's action of getting involved, well, you can scan the QR code to join the BiS Discord. We're talking not only F1600s, we're not talking only radicals, but we're also talking the brand new BiS IndyCar Championship that's coming this spring.
Yeah. And folks, if you've never driven an IndyCar, you've never seen IndyCar racing on the iRacing service, well, you haven't seen Shakespeare the way it's supposed to be performed. It is absolutely incredible. These are some of the most difficult cars to control in the world, and these drivers are going to be putting it on the line on road courses, on street courses, on high bank super speedways, on low bank short ovals. This is the most diverse form of racing there is, and jump on in here, try your mettle with the BiS IndyCar Championship. It is going to be the best of times.
And we hope to see you on track for that one. And we also hope to have you tuning in 2 weeks' time when our points championship here comes to an end. But until then, that is it for us here tonight from Phillip Island. On behalf of our entire team at Podium, for everybody at BiS and all of our partners, want to thank you for tuning in, as well as for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer downstairs, Christian Hill, for DJ Clark, and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to say thanks again, and congratulations go out to both of our race winners tonight. It is a 2-time race win for Stuart Ross, who picks up now 3rd and 4th wins on the championship, and a tip of the cap as well to Matthew Murphy, who played spoiler with the race win in feature race number 2. We're back, though, in 2 weeks' time for the 6th and final round of this BiS Formula 1600 Championship, and it is from iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. That race and every race of this championship can be found exclusively right here on Podium. Until next time, good night from the Garden State.
want to improve your driving technique, you cannot just ask someone to tell you when to brake or when to turn. You have to learn how the car wants you to drive it. You have to learn car handling techniques, and that's where I excel at. The Motor Racing Checklist is the work of my life, currently with 2,000 drivers registered, and here's the thing, if you don't improve in 30 days, you get your money back. So give it a try. If you have any questions, just send me a message. I'm always available to answering these questions. This course is made for high-level drivers. If you're a beginner, you're gonna use it for a long time because all these concepts will help you right away, but the more you improve, the more you understand them, and then you're able to squeeze every concept to the limit, and you're gonna gain precision to be able to apply them in a very subtle way that most people don't even notice a difference in their driving. But those are the small things that make you improve a tenth per corner, and then if you just add up those tenths, you realize you're 1 second faster than everyone else. Give it a try. If you have any question, just send me a message.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.